Hey guys, welcome to a new video of Bitcoin Edge. Today we'll have an interesting talk with Bithedge about his story in crypto and where he is now and how he works in it. Welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to be on here.
Thanks. So, yeah, how did you get into crypto? That's basically the first question I always ask, and um, every story is different. So, how did you get in?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, maybe like it seems like not too many people got into this way. I guess a lot more recently have.
Mm-hmm.
Like 4 or 5 years ago, pretty early on in high school, I started kind of looking into stocks and just punting shit on like Robinhood, before that got super big, but just, like buy a $100 Microsoft call, stuff like that. Did
Mm-hmm.
that for a couple months and I started to kind of realize that maybe I'm pretty into markets. I want to start taking it more seriously. So I go down that rabbit hole, on the TradFi side for sure first.
Mm-hmm.
Start getting pretty into derivatives more specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Reading books about like options, stuff like that. When I got to college, I went to college for software engineering, and that was kind of, what I wanted to do before was maybe like work at Fang or something, but that kind of just
Mm-hmm.
evolved a little bit, and I eventually started getting into crypto in like 2020. So not early by any means, but
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin was like $8,000 when I first bought a little bit, and I started looking more into it,
Mm-hmm.
and I just realized there was a couple cool things about it. First things first is like I had always been kind of reading about markets and reading about like algorithmic trading, shit like
Mm-hmm.
that, and how people used to do it when computerized trading first became kind of big, and there was all these like this low hanging fruit that's just
Mm-hmm.
gone now in traditional
Yeah.
markets, right?
Yeah.
And I come into crypto and it's like, oh, it's not really gone here. It's not the easiest thing in the world to make money. It is during the bull market if you're just buying and holding. But
Yeah.
I get into crypto and I noticed some opportunity. I joined a couple like Telegram groups. I don't know if you know material indicators.
Yeah. Yeah. I
They
know.
make like a heat map. That was like the first group that I really kind of joined. I got into, and I was talking to the founder of that when I was like just getting started on crypto, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone was just kind of like, it kind of seemed like a way more level playing field, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of felt pulled to it. I made a Twitter and started sharing some kind of Bitcoin options analysis I had been doing,
Mm-hmm.
and that started to pick up speed pretty quickly. And yeah, I just, I still feel like I'm like doubling my knowledge about crypto like every month because I've really, only been into it for like a little over a year now.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think having a longer, background in TradFi and just being pretty obsessed with this stuff has let me get a pretty good handle on it. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, now I'm like, I like to watch stocks. I like looking at macro. It's obviously more important now that Bitcoin just kind of trades like a stock recently, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But crypto is my main market now for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. And yeah, you definitely have your own view on things, and that's also why some of my friends, have pointed you out to interview as well. So yeah, you're doing some things pretty good, and you're quite into programming, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, that was like definitely what I wanted to do when
Mm-hmm.
I was younger, and I started at a pretty young age, just like sticking around making like flash games and stuff in like eighth grade and just stuff
Wow.
like that. And I I still like I'll always see myself as wanting to do a little bit of programming every week, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what, because it's kind of it's not really an edge just knowing how to program, but when you are able to kind of think of a hypothesis and test it,
Mm-hmm.
in crypto pretty quickly. Maybe, sometimes you find an edge like that pretty easily. And,
Yeah.
I just like to be able to look at stuff that maybe isn't, on websites already.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely like programming. I do a little bit of programming every week, and that's definitely going to continue to be a big part of my life. But I don't think I could just write software for, like Walmart. I'm into markets for sure. It's a lot more exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So you need that little
That real world
excitement in it.
connection. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Cool, cool. And at Glassnode, you were basically programming, or what were you doing there? If I
Yeah,
may
yeah.
ask, you
So
know?
it was just like this was like when I really kind of started to realize, wow, like crypto's gonna change my life. I was just like 2 or 3 months into posting on Twitter, and the founders of Glassnode DM'd me and wanted to get on a call, and we got on a call, and they just kind of liked some of the derivatives analytics I was doing, and they basically, I don't know, you've probably seen they've started kind of expanding into that too. I mean, they might be the biggest kind of data analytics platform in the space. I think they're
Yeah.
probably the biggest I can
And
think of.
and can you pull something up and show you why you look at that and why you think it's important? Because for some people, it will be new, you know?
Yeah, yeah, sure. It's kind of tough because I don't have a Glassnode subscription right now
Oh,
anymore.
okay.
I got to renew it, so I don't have anything on Glassnode.
You
Um,
can pull up one of your Twitter pics if you have something
but
in
I'll show
there.
you. Yeah, I'll show you kind of, a big thing kind of originally that I started to look at was just options.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I really got into crypto is through options. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll pull some stuff up on this site, which is really
Oh,
good
sure, yeah.
first, and show just like there's no inherent edge in knowing what options if they're expensive right now, but it helps to get a grasp on
Mm-hmm.
our options relatively
Mm-hmm.
cheap. Is it a good time for me to buy some? And like that was one of the first things I made at Glassnode was they wanted to start branching out into derivatives a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
I helped spec out and integrate just like an at the money implied volatility on that site.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like this is stuff like implied volatility, stuff like perpetual funding. They didn't have. I think they have that now. Futures term structure, futures basis. Just like the main kind of methodology, I guess, of my trading is to kind of try to gauge what the crowded trade is right now and
Mm-hmm.
start to kind of figure out what I think is a good time to start taking the opposite side of that crowded trade. Because to me,
Yeah.
that's when things really start moving. It's like, if people are starting to, if everyone's market's pretty flat and, people are starting to want to buy a little bit of Bitcoin, maybe some people market buy, some people place limit orders and,
Mm-hmm.
just scaling slowly. But it's when your PL really starts getting hit or just straight up get liquidated
Mm-hmm.
that the price just starts gapping around like crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I always kind of want to try to take the other side
Mm-hmm.
of what I think is crowded and
Yeah.
stuff like, funding rate, open interest is
Mm-hmm.
definitely the pillar of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And yeah, I always say, you know, when everybody's bought already, who else is there to buy? And vice
Yeah,
versa,
yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Like,
Yep.
yeah, if everybody's sold already, like, who's left to sell, you know? That is basically it, you know, and especially, you know, liquidations and stuff will do the rest.
Yeah,
Um,
liquidations are huge. That's probably my main thing that I try to catch.
mhm.
And it's unfortunate that I wasn't really around for like the ultimate like BitMEX era where it would just absolutely,
Oh,
just nuke the price and
oh, that was
no.
in today's video, or like uh, in yesterday's video, you know. I even had a story about that, you know, about the 6K breakdown as well in 2018 and
Yep.
stuff like that. It's and also, you know,
Yeah,
on a
I
lower
was
time
still
frame.
mainly into stocks during
Yeah.
during that. I managed to do pretty well buying put options on just like cruise lines and stuff that obviously got killed.
Oh, really? Oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. All in like post COVID, basically, or like
Yeah, I mean,
post March
I
2020.
definitely,
Yeah.
I started to like, maybe kind of consider trading my main interest for sure in
Hmm.
like February of 2020. So like kind of just in time
Oh yeah. Oh
for the crash.
man, that's pretty epic. Um,
Yeah, yeah, but the liquidations thing. is I was saying it's kind of a shame. Maybe it's not a shame because less people get wrecked, but you know, FTX and Binance, everyone is kind of less. Their engines are less aggressive than like Bybit and BitMEX, and what kind of happened is because the engines are so aggressive on those exchanges that everyone got wiped out on them, and they don't have as big a share of open interest, right?
Yeah.
I have I'll show you like.
Yeah, that definitely, like back in the day, like when that happened, it was BitMEX was huge, and BitMEX, I think
Mhm.
their engine messed up as well around that time.
Yeah, like here's ETH open interest on FTX, and it's just like, I mean, look how hard we just nuked, and
Yeah.
there's just not a lot of liquidations. Recently, in general, it's kind of up only. I'll show Bitcoin. It's like, it's like what is this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you look at like, let's look at like BitMEX, and it's just, a different story. They lose,
Yeah.
50% of their open interest on
Yeah.
big nukes, and it's
Yeah.
just so much tinier than it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, pull up Bybit, please.
Gotcha.
Like the open interest compared to like the highs to now. It's pretty brutal.
Yep. I don't know why it's taking a second to load.
Is it loading?
No, it's not. That's on my end too. Maybe I mean, I'll see if it's loading on ETH, and that might do just as well. Weird. All right, I got a different site though. I'll show.
Uh, yeah, Coinanalyze I use. Bybit. If you just type in Bybit, you'll find the first one in the search bar.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
all.
it's the perp one. Yeah.
Perfect. Yep. I'll add the open interest. Yeah, that's incredible, right?
Look at how versus April versus now.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Maybe you know something about it. Any other exchanges take a lot of customers from Bybit, or is it just really that Bybit apes basically got nuked that hard?
Well, I'm sure it's a mix of both. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a mix of both. I would say that I really think like it's like 80% just that the nukes,
Mm-hmm.
the nuke just wiped everyone out.
Yeah.
And definitely, FTX has been the biggest kind of siphon of open interest,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which is interesting because I was actually having a discussion just the other week with a couple people, and if you go and look at the FTX liquidation engine docs, it
Mm-hmm.
actually specifies that when you get liquidated on FTX, as opposed to just, market selling your position if you were long, they'll have like a liquidity provider come in and just take over your position for you. So they have
Mm-hmm.
that position now, and there's
Mm-hmm.
no actual sell. And then to hedge the, position that they just took over from you, those liquidity providers will go and make the trade on a different exchange and, you
Ah,
know, perhaps
interesting.
liquidate more people on other exchanges.
Yeah.
So it's almost kind of like a little bit of a hostile effect wherein, say BitMEX starts getting liquidated, right? FTX liquidations get triggered. On FTX, the open interest doesn't even go down because a lot of the positions just get transferred over to different people.
Mm-hmm.
But then those liquidity providers that are now long on FTX
We'll nuke
are going
somewhere
to
else.
go, they're going to go, yeah, and hedge it out somewhere else. And then maybe they'll get liquidated by the shittier engine over there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was I've yet to like fully kind of dive into that as much as I wanted to because I've just been busy lately, but it's definitely interesting to take a look at the FTX docs and how that open interest just seems like invincible.
Yeah, that's an interesting one for sure. First time I'm hearing it, by the way. Um, oh, that's quite interesting. Um,
Yeah.
hmm. Yeah. Okay. Um, what else? And how do you Like, let's say you see something happening like this, where do you plan to buy, after liquidations happened, or are you like, what kind of market analysis do you use on it after it, for
Yeah,
example?
after shit starts hitting the fan. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's actually been a pretty good time to buy in general when you just see like that total candle down and the volume is as much as the entire surrounding week. And as soon as stuff kind of I'm sure you've like been lucky enough to just watch it like happen live at some point.
Mm-hmm.
When the liquidations start, it's just like down tick, down tick, down tick, down tick. Like the price just ticks lower
Mm-hmm.
over and over, and it doesn't tick up whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there's a pretty good hit rate, honestly. Just wait till like wait like 10 seconds till after the price has done its first uptick,
Mm-hmm.
and you're in a pretty good position to just punt it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And the main signs kind of that it's a good spot to buy. Just like the total capitulation is definitely volume for the most part. Like that was what was interesting about like there wasn't really this is how and I kind of have been saying that I think most people on this Binance contract are short. We're down like 20% from the highs and a lot of volume here, but really not down here, and there weren't that many liquidations.
Yeah.
So I didn't buy there. I was long from 50K to 52. Then I
Mm-hmm.
got stopped out over here, and I just have been kind of trading some alts since then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, and I guess while we're on the topic of liquidations too, it's most people probably know this, but Binance like doesn't report them properly anymore. Uh,
Yeah.
you hear about that? Yeah, and I think recently OKX switched the way they reported them too. So, the actual liquidations data is just bunk, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's pretty obvious just by looking at what happens to the open interest,
Yeah.
if people are getting wiped out.
Yeah. 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 Totally agree. Um, and what do you think of premiums and discounts?
Yeah,
Or
sure. Yeah, so I actually kind of prefer those to funding rates. I
mm-hmm.
know a lot of people will be like, "Oh, funding isn't negative, this market is not short." I don't. If you look at the formula for how, everyone knows that funding rate is calculated from the premium or discount to
Yeah.
spot, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes, especially recently, there's kind of been like a large discrepancy there where Binance has been trading like $60 below the spot index, but the funding has been neutral.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't really, it's kind of hard to explain those discrepancies sometimes,
But
but to
it's
me,
it's not totally fundings like fundings is not totally premiums and discounts. I believe there's some more to it.
there's a
Um,
little bit more to it, yeah, but I mean the main kind of factor that you're trying to kind of, extract from that to, convert it to a measure of buyer sell pressure
mhm.
is the premium.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
I agree.
yeah, so people will kind of overhype funding instead of
Hmm.
looking at the premium, which is, largely there's not really many places to see the premium. I don't have TradingView Pro, otherwise
Oh yeah,
I keep meaning
I have
I keep
Trading
meaning to
View.
get it.
I have Trading View Pro, and I have an indicator for it as well.
Yeah, I
Um,
keep meaning to get it because it's like it's so cheap. I just keep forgetting. But I have a couple of like like custom scripts I wrote to look at
mhm.
it. I don't have them on this computer
Hmm.
right now, but it's definitely been a little bit overhyped recently. The funding meme. It's like if funding's positive, then longs are about to get wiped out. If funding's negative, then shorts are about to get squeezed. That's not it's
I
obviously
mean,
not that binary.
it's not as simple as that for sure. Because the thing
Yep.
is, like, in bull markets, if price doesn't dip, and if bulls, let's say, um, keep being profitable and price goes up with high funding, there's no problem. It's a bull market. Funding is high. Funding
Exactly.
is
And yeah.
like, but if price stalls, people are getting liquidated basically if price stalls, just because there's extremely
Correct.
high
Yep.
fundings, and especially Bybit, for example, in May or April, it was completely loco, and um, yeah, and when it then starts to dip, with high fundings or going down with high fundings, yeah, then there's real danger there. But as long as price goes up, which can happen in a bull market with high fundings, then there's
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's definitely part of like, my main kind of strategy where I'm just trying to catch people off sides is that,
hmm
you can know or you can think that the market is extremely, over leveraged to the long side.
hmm
But unless you're starting to kind of like push to the lows, you're just gonna go broke trying to call the top.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
hmm
So it's really hard to pinpoint the fucking top. So what I kind of like to do is, I mean, at least this might not be the greatest example because it didn't work out, but I was long in late December. I was trying to catch, because I thought this market was really short. I think it still is really short. There's just been such a weak bid, so it hasn't mattered. But I was trying to catch like the stop run. You know what I mean? In
hmm
combination with people being short,
hmm
never materialized, and then we start bleeding down, and it doesn't matter that everyone's short because they're just winning.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, definitely, it kind of comes with, I guess in general, I'm more of a breakout trader than trying
hmm
to do like mean reversion.
hmm
Um, so you get burned a lot of the times
Yeah.
on breakouts, but there's a pretty easy invalidation too
hmm
on most breakouts. So
Are you still there?
yeah, did I cut out?
Yeah, you cut out a little bit.
I did. Yeah, we can just crop. We can just crop this part. What was the last word I said?
Uh, I like you were just quiet for 10 seconds or something. No, we'll just keep going.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so what like what other tools do you use that or look at? Is that do you have something else where you say like, well, this is a tool I use a lot because I don't know, it gives you something more or
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And you said you like this too.
yeah, it, it
Just
it's
looking at.
it's right now we're basically the same kind of guys trading wise. Um,
Yeah, I really like Coinalyze. I'm like shocked the site is free.
yeah, I use it every
What's-
day as well. I do
Yep.
see,
What?
like I always just click add extra data, and then I
Mhm.
get like the open interest, and that's how I look at it. But I see you add it separately and make it way cleaner. Um,
Yeah, yeah, you do. I do a little bit of both. I really like Trading Light. I got this kind of recently,
hmm,
um, and it's just like it's been really nice too to kind of get context. Like you might see a number like, oh, somebody market bought or somebody placed a limit buy for $2 million, and it's
hmm,
like, okay, well, what does that number actually mean in practice?
hmm,
So when I first got Trading Light, I just kind of went back and went through all different areas in the order book and just kind of sum up, like what is a big bid, you know what I
yeah,
mean, and what is a big ask? Because without context, it's just kind of
hmm.
you can't tell what's a number worth paying
And
attention
and
to.
and and how
A recent example, I definitely think this FTX bid that popped in a minute ago, we didn't even like run into it, but it's pretty big. There's like 1 or 2 thousand Bitcoin. That's
hmm,
definitely big to me.
hmm, yeah, it's big. But how accurate do you feel it is?
In
Like
terms of like, are people like spoofing or they're not gonna let
yeah,
it get filled?
exactly.
Yeah, it's hard. You can't know for sure. In my experience, more often than not, like large orders tend to either get filled or even if they aren't getting filled, people will kind of respect them or try to, or they'll make their presence felt, even if they're not filled, just because people see it and they don't necessarily want to take the risk that it is real when they think it isn't.
Hmm,
So there's no real easy trick to know like what's a real bid,
hmm,
unfortunately, and what isn't. Some exchanges are kind of have different levels of spoofing. Binance has pretty bad spoofing. Like Coinbase Spot is a pretty good order book. Um, I'll go and show like the wall that was at 3K on ETH the other day. Yeah, like what's this? Like that's like 4,000 ETH there.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time this was a trade I took. I just had a bid in at 3,000. I just sold out at like 30.50. Um, yeah, I mean, trading light isn't like my main tool. It's definitely not perfect, but
Mm-hmm.
if I'm trading with like an intraday, kind of view, I'm always going to check it. I
Mm-hmm.
do really wish that, and you can tell me if you've heard of one because I've just like been looking for one. I can't find like a great aggregated order book, like a heat map that shows every exchange. Um,
I have one. I'll
do
show
you?
you.
What's the,
Bitcoinity. 1 second, I'm gonna look it up for you.
sure.
I'm not sure if it works well. Back in the day, it was a little bit slowish.
Mm-hmm.
Let me check. I'll type it in. Um, Combined order book. Yeah, this one. I'm gonna send you a link and you can pull it up if you
Perfect.
want. And then go to more charts at like left top, yeah, there.
Yeah.
And then where it says new, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, like
the,
this? Yeah, like I've seen these, but I mean like the heat map,
oh,
in
sorry,
particular
yeah,
is what I was
yeah,
really thinking.
yeah. Wisdom, sorry, Wisdom has it. Um, Let me check. Sorry, Bitcoin Wisdom.
Yeah, yeah, I do.
This is basically for the old guys, for the boomers in Bitcoin. Then just go any, I believe, yeah, and then to
Oh,
settings.
aggravated.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah, this one.
Yeah, yeah, I have seen this actually. I have.
But yeah, like Bitcoin Wisdom is pretty hard on your CPU and RAM, I believe.
Yup,
Um,
yeah, like my laptop's having trouble even loading it.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's not.
it's pretty hard on it. Um, but I like.
If this is true, and I guess I'll have to look more into this. If this is like a really accurate aggregated heat map, then
I mean,
that's good to know.
like Wisdom has some downsides. Like it's just like I said before. It's hard on your CPU and RAM, and I have a gaming PC, so like I'm
Yeah.
doing fine.
Yeah, I
But
got a good PC at home, but
oh
where I'm
yeah,
at right now, I just got my laptops.
oh yeah, yeah. So and it's slowish. It lags a little bit compared to TradingView. Sometimes, like the data isn't as quick as it is others. But I do love,
Yeah.
if you go to a lower time frame, to the 5 minute, let's say. Um, I like those lines, on the right side, how they show the order book as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's a cool feature.
Um, yeah, so I'm a big fan of it. And especially for if you want to do technical analysis with just some lines, I think
Hmm.
wisdom is might be the best, because I don't even know what it is, but if I want to draw a trend line or something, it's yeah, wisdom is the best for me.
Yeah.
But it could be just because that's where it all started for me. But
Yeah, I mean, TA is definitely kind of like the lowest common denominator in crypto analysis. You can see I'm only like a horizontals guy.
hmm
I don't trade specifically off them, but there's times where you'll see price react to a level, and you're like, okay, it's indisputable that technical analysis works to some degree.
yeah,
Um, People get a little bit crazy with like five indicators and like
yeah,
four triangles on their chart
yeah.
sometimes.
I
But
totally agree. Yeah,
I'll always do some simple
yeah.
horizontals. Yeah, I'm pretty into that, but my main market has is pretty much alts. I
Mm-hmm.
like to trade kind of small or mid cap alts. I always kind of, I watch Bitcoin and Ethereum more than
Mm-hmm.
any single alt because I think it's, you have to have a handle on what's going on with them, or you're just gonna get kind of wrecked. And unfortunately, recently too, you got to kind of have a handle on what's going on with macro,
Mm-hmm.
larger markets. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of like LARPing, like everyone thinks they know what the Fed will or won't do or whatever. I just like to kind of watch SPX and look at relative strength versus Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that can be pretty telling. Like, like recently it's like uncanny and it like kind of sucks because it's like, well, if you don't have edge in the SPX market, then do you have edge in the Bitcoin market right now?
Mm-hmm.
Certainly it doesn't erode all of it, but yeah, I've been kind of hiding out in lower cap alts recently. When it comes to alts, I'm just kind of like a narratives guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it might be as simple as, nine times to ten, if like Hisaka tweets something, it'll just be going up for the next month. So
Mm-hmm.
shit like that when it comes to alts.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, I guess I have some pretty cool. I have some other cool charts to show on Bitcoin that give me like a little bit of alpha earlier in the year that were kind of popular. Is the charts on the price performance by the time zone, right? So
Oh
like
yeah.
this was pretty shocking when I ran this. Here's Bitcoin right back from January of 2020, and it kind
Yeah.
of it this shows the performance of if you had bought Bitcoin at 8 a.m. local time in these three major time zones and sold it at 6 p.m. local time, and you can see it's all U.S.
Yeah. I yeah.
Mhm.
I remember
Pretty.
that. Uh, for a while, I was basically buying in the morning and
Yep,
selling
yep.
selling for bed night, and
Yeah, that
I've,
was
I've
alpha for a while.
I did that for like yeah the whole year basically, um, and
Yeah, and that was
it
like
was amazing.
like it sucks. That kind of goes hand in hand with like GBTC being not like a total vacuum anymore. I mean, there's like $40 billion of Bitcoin in that. It's just insane. It was just sucking up so much Bitcoin every day and typically during US hours. And with that out of the market, you know, we still, we went on and made a new high in November, but we kind of stopped seeing logarithmic growth after there was like real US spot buyers. I have a more updated or a more zoomed in one, and
Hmm.
it's the same trend, but you could see fucking. I mean, this might be the most shocking part is during Asia session, zero cumulative gains over the last 2 years.
Hmm.
Um, but you go in more recently, and you can kind of see what drove this sell off and what's going on. You can yellow's Asia. Asia started kind of dumping, and then U.S. has been kind of ranging for a while. Europe ranging.
Yeah,
I have ETH, which is even more
and
shocking.
that's. Can you go one back?
Yeah.
Do you think? Because I think this one had to do with 1 second, with basically Huobi closing customers' accounts.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's part of it. And I mean, the whole thing is regulatory, right?
Hmm.
While like theoretically, I guess, the threats should, in a quote unquote efficient market, the threats should, be felt like equally by everyone because we're all trading the same thing. But the regulatory fear just like literally hits closer to home for people in Asia.
Hmm.
And, they were just not interested in buying Bitcoin or any crypto over the past 2 years.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
But
these.
yeah, here's ETH. ETH is even crazier, and these are kind of like when you go over a really long time scale like this, it's kind of like the growth is compounding, so it looks a little bit more like absurd than perhaps it is if you're trading it day by day.
Hmm.
But I think it gets the point across pretty well that U.S. has been buying cryptos. The U.S. has been driving crypto um, since early 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the recent on ETH too.
Oh yeah. Interesting. Love it.
Yeah, so that was the strategy I was doing for a while. It kind of, stopped working so much. I have another. Here's a good chart on like inflows on spot Bitcoin funds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can just ignore the gold. It's just in there. But this started going vertical, and it's like, let me know next time we're gonna have $10 billion of spot Bitcoin buying for, and that kind of petered out at the top pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's obviously not a coincidence. And even like I was saying earlier, even though we went on to make a new all-time high, I mean, this is like this is like noise compared to this almost. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was
And that's
completely loco, and like from yeah, basically from 14K or something. What was it? Since then it was completely loco, up only.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think largely kind of
Of 12 or
after.
12K, what was it? Yeah, since there basically.
I think kind of started around here.
Yeah.
And then another big kind of aspect now that's American is CME, right? There was the basis trade was pretty huge, right? So everyone is. I got some charts on this. Everyone is like starved for yield in TradFi, right? I mean, they're buying bonds that barely yield anything. There's more to it than that, but you know the basis on Bitcoin and CME winter was 20% annualized, and it's like most of these funds didn't do that last year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they should have just gone all in and done that apparently, but some were smart enough to do that with some of their money, and there's obviously like the buy, you buy spot and you sell the CME future. It sounds like it would be offsetting, but the CME future is not a price setting exchange. People are
Mm-hmm.
not like, I don't really think people will see CME trading, significantly above spot and say, oh, spot should be higher now. It's not a price setting exchange. Spot, $100 of spot is worth a lot more than $100 on CME to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it all basically kind of, I mean, there was, there still is with the ETF this happened. There was like, like $3 or $4 billion last winter that went into that and got locked up, and that's spot buying, and they sell the future. Um, that was big, and it kind of died down recently. As the basis came in and as the year came to a close, I have some interesting stuff on ETH, which I think has been kind of a source of supply recently. The cool thing about CME is you can see like breakdown by trader class, their actual positioning, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
not like you have to guess. You actually see how these guys are reportedly, positioned on the futures.
Mm-hmm.
So ETH futures got launched earlier this year. Hedge fund slash CTA category, immediately just short only all the way down to take advantage of this fat basis of 10%. And then just recently, starting in like late November, that kind of reversed a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks to me like there's been, well over, since November, there's been like close to $500 million of this basis trade closed, is what I think it is. And, that entails selling spot and buying the future back, which, like we said before, I think the spot has a bigger effect. So I think that's been a little bit of additional supply lately. As that got unwound, that was just like such a vacuum as well. It was just, you can make 20%. At times it was 50% if you were willing to go onto FTX like some people were to just buy Bitcoin, take supply off the market
Mm.
and sell the future. And that was kind of, I guess the supply shock was like the whole kind of narrative that really made this thing fly last winter. Um, you saw the charts of like balance on exchanges was going down and down and down, and it still kind
Mm-hmm.
of is, but not how it was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that's definitely, to me, it was last November through February, or I should say November 2020 through February 2021. The whole kind of bull market was US, GBTC, basis, and FOMO, and that
Mm-hmm.
was 80% of it was coming from the US, and it was pretty much all spot. We have people fucking around trading futures, and you can do a lot to the price with that, but it's just so much more kind of PVP and shorter term on futures. If you really
Mm-hmm.
want to make Bitcoin quadruple in price, I think you need spot demand, and that hasn't
Yeah.
that hasn't come back.
Yeah, I think totally agree. But I think that's you can draw a funny comparison between the bull market, we're I guess still currently seeing, or the one we had, basically from 20K to 50K, and compare that
Yeah.
to what we had in April, like starting in April 2019 till July, for example. Um,
Yeah, I mean that's vertical growth too. That's we
Yeah,
didn't see anything
and
like
that
it
is
above.
completely, I think, and in my opinion, derivatives driven.
Yep.
That was only short squeeze, and at the top you saw such huge premiums, more than 20% annualized in futures, and yeah, the last day it was 20% up, So it's like if something, that was basically the end squeeze, let's say, like the high, was on a day with a 20% candle and annualized was
Yep.
over 20%. That's when you need to sell, Um,
Yep. Yeah, I
and
mean, there definitely still is the possibility for that, but and you're totally right too. I mean, everyone knows that the bottom in July was put in by a fast short squeeze on Binance,
yeah.
right? And then look, we went on and put in a new all-time high after that. But,
Mm-hmm.
I think we're definitely, in terms of like dollar amount added to market cap, I think it's going to be hard to see late 2020, early 2021 type stuff happen again. I don't really. I feel like those days might be gone. I'm not sure. There's people draw like comparisons between like dollars parked in bonds that they think will go over to Bitcoin. I mean, maybe partially, but it's kind of unfortunate that I don't know. I think we need to see a much different environment for that. I don't have a very strong conviction on crypto's prices like a year from now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of moderately bullish in the near term, and I certainly don't think we just grind down for the next year straight. Talking about macro, and I was saying it's a little bit of a meme, and it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. I think sometime in 2023, early 2024, we just see. I mean, here is. We'll just look at this as a proxy for the Fed funds rate,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's just like there is a secular bull market in bonds, that goes back like 50 years, and I don't think that that's going to change. I mean, there's just no way in hell to me that we get the Fed funds rate much higher than here before something starts to go wrong. I mean, like the American way of life is just kind of like predicated on your 401k doing all right, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like a political tool now. I mean, Trump would literally tweet about new all-time highs in the stock market. And I just, even if we start to like lose some purchasing power in real terms because of this, I think sometime in the next few years there will be a reverse course of the Fed. They start cutting rates again, etc., and
Mm-hmm.
then that will be like a pretty big mania. That'll probably be even better than 2020 was, as people just kind of want to escape, what they see as a currency that's losing its value.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm definitely, yeah, I think, I'm a believer in the super cycle. I think it just takes a pause for a year, and then, monetary conditions start getting easier again, and we go back to up only. You see 100K Bitcoin, 20K ETH, etc.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of mixed about it, and The only thing I do know is in 4 years, I know the price will be higher of Bitcoin
Yeah.
than it is now.
Yeah.
Um, I got into Bitcoin quite early, and from basically December 2013, it was all pain till 2016, basically end of
Yeah.
2016. It was just pain. You
Yeah.
had this Lambo dream. We had it back then already, in 2013. We had Lambo
Yeah.
dreams. And
Yeah.
I didn't trade that much, during that time. I bought again sub to $100, in 2015.
Not bad.
Very, very glad I got that opportunity, but
Yeah.
it was so much pain. It's and back then, we really thought, like, I was legit scared, it might go away, and a lot of people were like, Bitcoin is
Yeah.
dead.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It's so much. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
It's so
one thing
much
everyone
different
can
now,
kind of agree on now, it seems like, is that it's not going to zero, right? It's
Yeah.
just like a lot of the altcoins might, but Bitcoin, Ethereum. I have more money always kind of like allocated. I trade most of my stack, but
Mhm.
I always keep a little bit saved up and
Mhm.
it's mostly in ETH or Bitcoin. But I will say, if I had to hold one thing for like 10 years and I couldn't sell it, I think it would have to be Bitcoin over ETH. I just think that's got the absolute staying power.
Yeah, I mean,
It's gonna go up.
yeah, it's like, how do you say it? It's Bitcoin is like the one without, I don't know, even the one without an inventor, or even how you say it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, what's appealing too is that the monetary policy of it can't be changed, right? It's like it's nice. It's cool that ETH is going to be deflationary and Bitcoin
Mhm.
isn't. I mean, that's a good argument to
Mhm.
buy ETH as a store of value.
Yeah.
But maybe it's a better argument that, well, you can't, you can change ETH. You can't change Bitcoin. So
Mhm. Yeah, exactly, and that's basically what I mean. And I'm not the most technical guy to discuss about this stuff, but yeah, I for those reasons I do see, and I do understand Bitcoin maxis that way. I
yeah,
am not one, um, and also I like money. But I like the idea of Bitcoin the most, to be honest.
sure, sure. Yeah, I'm looking for a chart I saw that kind of is pretty cool. That kind of shows what's. Oh, here we go. This is a pretty cool chart to me. This is just like all like equity ETFs that are in, that JP Morgan covers. And what you're kind of seeing is like the death of active investing. And obviously, retail investing is taking off. But for the large part, a lot of like wealthy individuals are realizing, hedge funds don't really beat the S&P 500 that often anymore.
Hmm.
And since 2010, there's been this like mass exodus into just like passive strategies, just like you buy S&P 500 ETF with your paycheck every 2 weeks. You don't look at it. That's that, and that's part of the reason why shit just only goes up in the U.S.
Hmm.
stock market. But I think what the true bull case for Bitcoin is what I said here is just like it gets to a point where people will put a little bit of their paycheck into it every month, right? And we
Hmm.
totally saw some of that happen this year. Like I have plenty of like my dad's boomer friends. They buy $5,000 or $10,000 of Bitcoin, and like that's awesome. But they just bought it once. They're like, yeah, I want to have a little bit of exposure, but I think you need that like perpetual bid every week, and people to really kind of accept crypto as something that they cannot look at for 5 years and assume it'll be higher, and that's
Yeah.
kind of how Bitcoin maybe stops doing crazy shit like doing a 5x in a year, but it starts doing 20% a year, every
Yeah.
year for a decade.
Yeah, and Paul Tudor Jones, you probably know him. He got
Yep.
into Bitcoin, I guess, or started talking about Bitcoin publicly around the same time you got in, I believe,
Yep.
in 2020. he basically said, like during this March crash, um, what was it? 88% of the wallets, um,
Yeah, I've heard
didn't
this.
do a
Yep,
single
yep.
transaction. They completely held through like this huge dump, from the high all the way to the lower of yeah, depending on the exchange, like what was it, 3, 4K, 5K, whatever. They just held through it all, and he's like, imagine there are so many people, who just do not sell.
Yep,
That
exactly.
that is really the bull case for Bitcoin, and yeah.
Yeah, and that's like kind of what we saw with like Chainlink, right? And the
Yeah, and I mean,
must have
I
been
was I was completely the same, like during my years of pain, I was talking about earlier about, like, I don't know, like you just do not sell hodl,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
don't know,
There it gets
it's
to a certain point when it's like I'm down like 60%. I'm just gonna fucking hold this thing and
yeah,
and hope for the best.
yeah, exactly, and you can do that in Bitcoin, but not with every alt, for example.
Yeah,
And
yeah, definitely
that's
not. I think that's another big kind of. I think kind of recently we've seen the proliferation of fully diluted value kind of come to the spotlight. I remember I saw a poll by a pretty big page. I forget who, but this was like 4 or 5 months ago, and it was like, do you prefer looking at circulating market cap or fully diluted market cap? And it was like almost 50-50. I think if you ran that poll now, it would be like 80-20 to fully diluted because and all these alts and like Solana is like the perfect like I'll pull up Serum. Everyone knows this one. Just like all these like high emission coins that are like packed with VCs. They just really seem like they're gonna go to like it's really hard to want to hold them for more than a couple weeks when
mm-hmm,
the inflation on them is just so insane. I
mm-hmm,
think that's something kind of big that is coming more to light. I think we're going to see more of a focus, from like DeFi 1.0 protocols and stuff. Like Yearn kind of did this. They do buybacks. They launch the token with less inflation. But yeah, I mean,
I mean,
alts are my main market.
yeah, I do understand that, and uh, I mean, sometimes, on alts, my preference, for example, I want to hear yours after I've told mine, but like what
Yep.
I do with alts is like really naked technical analysis, and then I check Bitcoin, is Bitcoin looking okay, and then I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, this is easy. If you go to FTT, for example, I did a little FTT trade, and yeah, exactly this time frame, and then you just you see these highs, like this little breakout to the upside. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I see what you're
you
saying.
see,
Like
like
something like
yesterday, I
this.
spotted it. No, I didn't even draw a trend line. I just a horizontal on
Yep.
that top. If you pull a horizontal on that breakout of yesterday, basically,
Right here.
yeah, right here. And if you zoom out, you see how important that level is right there.
Yeah.
Just a horizontal, yeah, just there, yeah. Then
Yeah,
draw
I
it all
mean,
the way
yeah.
back, like in
Like
history,
that works.
that exact
Mhm.
level had a lot of, even on March 2020 or like
Oh yeah, look
March,
at that.
yeah, like it's the same level, It was such an easy breakout. Um,
Yeah, that's definitely, is and it helps too, everyone knows obviously alts really do best when like Bitcoin or ETH are going up, but they're going up slowly.
yeah.
Um, just like when there's FOMO in the market, uh, and people don't want to buy Bitcoin and try to get a 1% return. It's just like TA works because so many people believe it work, and it's like I'll
Mm-hmm.
pull up a chart and Bitcoin looks all right, but it's just like kind of ranging or grinding up really slowly, and it's like when you see this chart that every other person who looks at it is also going to think it looks bullish. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that definitely helps.
Yeah. And
But
how
yeah, in the long run, it's just like, I mean, obviously, this is pretty well spoken about. The 2017 coins; those obviously aren't top 10 anymore.
mm-hmm.
So it's really hard. I don't know if I could name a single alt that I would be comfortable holding for, like 3 years. Beside, it would just be Bitcoin, Ethereum for me.
Yeah, or an exchange coin. Um,
Yeah, yeah, something like FTT maybe is one of them.
yeah,
I don't know.
FTT or BNB or whatever. Um, yeah, that like something like that maybe. Um, just because like yeah, I don't know how it works, you know. Um, and then how else do you look at it? Do you like do small trades, or what time frames do you like to look at for alts? Do you look at the BTC ratio for alts, or look at just?
Yeah, so typically, like I'll give a this was the last kind of home run I hit on an alt.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in general, I'd say my holding time is between like 2 hours and 10 days. I don't really
Mm-hmm.
scalp typically, if like like buy and then sell in 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll pull up these urine charts. This is like a perfect example for me, where there's like a confluence of narrative. Like urine had just I think you probably saw, right? They authorized like pretty big buybacks, and it kind of kicked off a rally. And what you could see is like this is kind of what you want to see to let me pull up predictive actually.
Mm-hmm.
This is like exactly what you want to see if you're trying to like catch people off sides. Urine is like the biggest like bag holder coin there is. Like everyone knows that the urine ETH chart has just been down only for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as this thing started to pump, open interest across all exchanges goes from 2,000 urine to almost 4,000 urine, doubles,
Mm-hmm.
and the aggregated funding rate is like, let me get a different time frame here and show how extreme it was. Just like it was deeper than it
Mm-hmm.
was at the end of July.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's that, like this for me, when you see the predicted just go that deep, you see the open interest just friggin' double.
Mm-hmm.
I managed to get in around like here,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh yeah,
got
perfect.
out. Yeah, I managed to get in around like there, and then it was just like, yeah, this was just like so textbook for me. I guess typically I'll kind of look at the 4 hour chart,
Mm-hmm.
for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of the 30 minute from there. And I don't really trade on much less than the 30 minute
Mm-hmm.
usually.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like, yeah, this is a perfect example of my main setup. I just try to look to where people are offsides and there's a reason for the coin to keep going higher. I mean, Urine was literally buying back tokens in the open market.
Mm-hmm.
People were shilling it all over on Twitter, like, oh, ultrasound urine or whatever. And it just pays to it pays to take the other side of these crowded trades when you think they start to feel some pain, because obviously at this point, they were starting to feel some pain. And the flip side to this too, which is kind of obvious, but which is worth pointing out, is if people are extremely short a coin, then you have a better upside
Mm-hmm.
potential, right? Because they're going to
Mm-hmm.
get stopped out to the upside.
Yeah,
And if the coin starts going down, you have them taking profits now. So
exactly. Yeah.
you can't really get a dump. So that's a good example for me of, I like it a 4 hour, 3 hour, and try to look at what I think looks like maybe like a two standard deviation negative funding
Mm-hmm.
coupled with an increase in open interest, and start looking at it, wait for it to kind of start pushing the highs, and usually like to see if there usually has to be some kind of catalyst for me,
Mm-hmm.
too, and then I'll just hop in. Um, that's a good example, yeah. But I
Pretty
can show
cool.
like I'll show like a misleading kind of usage of
Sure.
this. SLP, right? Do you know SLP?
No, I do not know it.
Yeah, this is like the sister coin to Axie. It's like you get paid in this coin if you're playing Axie, so the
Okay.
emissions are huge, right?
I'm a boomer, man. Like,
You do know Axie though, right?
no, I don't think so.
Axie. Really? All right. Well, whatever. It's Axie Infinity. It's like huge gaming token. But
Okay.
anyways, open interest is up only, right? Funding is down
Mm-hmm.
only, and it's extremely obvious that this coin is shorted into hell. But
Oh,
there's no catalyst, so there's no reason to buy. There's no this isn't a good long necessarily. Is what I'm trying to point out.
yeah.
But this is yeah, like this SLP is probably literally like the most shorted crypto asset on the market in my opinion. It's all on the FTX perp, but there's all these like people getting paid in the token and just dumping it immediately, and it's not
Yeah.
a good long.
Yeah. Interesting. Ah. Yeah, that's
But
quite
yeah,
misleading indeed.
let me see if there's just any other like cool charts on my Twitter recently. Um,
And your website, what about that one? Is it
yeah. So my website, I got a link. I've got like I tried to do stuff like every 2 weeks.
mm-hmm.
It kind of got away from me recently. But I've got like some cool articles on here. They're mostly about stuff that I've talked about on Twitter before.
Mm-hmm.
And like here, I've got some longer form stuff about what we were just talking about,
Mm-hmm.
the return by session. I've got stuff like this is pretty interesting too. I don't know if you're familiar with like the switch from coin margin to stable margin futures is just like a massive thing that's happening, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and what is your opinion about that? I mean, you see it over here. Coin margins versus stable margin. What is your opinion about that? What is your
I
opinion
think
about
it
that? Or like how
continues.
it changes things?
Yeah, well, I think it continues, and the obvious thing is right. So crypto margin longs, right? You see your margin go down while Bitcoin goes down, so you
Yeah.
get liquidated quicker.
Yeah.
And if you're short,
Your
you see your
collateral
margin
goes
go up
down.
as it goes up. So I mean, what happens with the if your stablecoin margin basically is that it's relatively harder for longs to get liquidated and relatively easier for shorts to get liquidated. So it's nothing but resoundingly bullish, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. If you want to target the long, you take coin margin because you need less leverage as well. Um,
Yep.
and vice versa. If you short, you're gonna use USD. But the thing is, like, is it because market makers are using it? Because I think retail is not even that smart. Like.
Yeah, I think it's largely just that stable coins weren't a thing for a while. And now
Mm,
that they're a thing, it's an option for people, I guess.
yeah,
That and like since, people used to kind of I feel like denominate their portfolios in Bitcoin more and people used to like chart stuff against the Bitcoin pair more. It's just like Bitcoin was like more of a reserve asset than it is now. You know what I mean?
yeah. That's a good point. That's kind of a good point. Yeah.
Oh, I do think it's resoundingly bullish. I think it'll continue. Yeah, let me look a little bit through some more stuff. Yeah, here's something I was talking about. Here's the Binance Cash Margin Ethereum perp
Mm-hmm.
versus the spot index, and it's been as negative as it was in July for like months. I mean, people are just short on Binance. Let me pull
Mm-hmm.
up what I think is kind of the biggest story in the market right now. Me, this is like all shorts, because the
Yeah.
premium's been negative, and it's like aggressive. It's a lot, and it's
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate. Like I was talking about earlier, that price just keeps going down, so they're not getting stopped out. But like, if I had to summarize, the market right now, I would say the bid is weak, but look at the Binance perp. It's extremely fucking short. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's something to keep an eye on.
And yeah, you like Binance for data the most, or what exchange do you like for
Well,
that the
this
most?
contract in particular just happens to be the biggest Bitcoin contract on the market.
Yeah, right. And after that comes
After that
FTX
comes FTX, I believe.
and then FTX or yeah, FTX and OKX is
And
pretty
I
big
think
as well,
it's
right?
then it's CME after that, but CME doesn't, they're
Yeah,
not really like liquidation candidates.
yeah, yeah. Cool, cool.
After that, I'm not sure. I think maybe
Bybit,
OKX
I think
or Bybit. Yeah.
Binance, FTX, OKX, Bybit, I guess. Bybit always does pretty
Yeah.
good when liquidations, but
Yeah. Yeah.
but I do love their interface and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I guess nothing huge, but yeah, that's kind of in general, I guess you could definitely summarize my kind of main strategy is just trying to catch people, trying to be on the opposite side of whatever's crowded.
mhm,
After there's at once there's a catalyst, and once it looks like those people are going to start being in pain.
mhm,
Um, I like to look at open interest and funding for the most part to kind of gauge the positioning. Like we said, it's not binary. It's kind of there's tons of kind of little intricacies about it,
mhm,
that help you become more accurate at reading it. And then, I like to look at option stuff a lot of the time just to see like sentiment. You can look at the relative expensiveness of puts versus calls, stuff like that.
mhm,
Um, I'm really kind of I don't specialize too much in one particular thing like I know a lot of people do. I just
mhm.
think I try to catch a narrative on altcoins where people are off sides. That's the main thing, and I'm able to leverage pretty well some decent programming skills I have to just kind of test out a thesis that I might have, and look at a chart that might not be available on another website.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. No, no, I totally agree, and yeah, very well explained. Um, is there anything we should talk about still? Yeah, make sure to follow Bithedge on Twitter, and his website. Where he, um, yeah, explains his articles more further. Um, shall we keep it like that?
Sure, yeah, yeah. I was happy to hop on. I hope I said some interesting stuff. I hope you learned a couple things, and it was
Yeah,
it was fun.
yeah, it was a lot of fun, and yeah, thanks for entertaining us and teaching us. Um, keep following you on Twitter, and we'll keep in contact. Thanks.
Perfect. See ya.
See ya.